Well, the baseboards are finished and I've started to lay some track, so stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good evening everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly Sidings. Yes, the baseboards are finished, so let's have a look at what I've been up to and then we'll look at the track. Right, well, the first thing you might notice is that that end part of the back scene is now gone. Excuse the wire, that will be extended. But I've now clipped the two baseboards together with those clips that I showed you the other day. On to the next bit. Going around the layout in a clockwise fashion, so that's where we've just come from. So going around here now, you can see I've made this infill piece. Now, that does look quite old and dilapidated and it's all full of holes. And you may remember I had on the main end gauge layout, I had a section almost near New Mill Central. There's a piece of wood crossing over. And I decided to remove it to make more space because it was taking up quite a lot of space. And this is that board. I've just chopped the end off and it's come in very, very useful. It's about the right length. You know, and I did what I said I would, and that was to add a plate here. And you probably can just about make that out. So you've got this wooden, for want of a better word, plate that's bolted through to that section underneath of this board and bolted through to that board. So this is more of a permanent fixing. This is a loose fixing here, just in case I need to make any adjustments. I can just undo those quickly with wing nuts on and then just tighten them up again. It doesn't need to be a hard, fast fixing. The idea is that, you know, as seasonal adjustments take place, I've got the height adjustment. There will be some sideways movement as well, so I'll explain that in a bit. Right, carrying on round, you'll notice now we've got these draw runners, or rollers even. Now, you can buy strips of rollers, I know, but they were £10 a strip, whereas I bought all of these rollers for £15. And it just, £30 against 15, I think it's a no-brainer really. This does exactly what it's meant to do. And there was a couple of people who were suggesting that it probably wouldn't work, but you can clearly see that it does. And there's a strong leg there, and it rolls beautifully. Now, I've decided to put a structure in the middle. Now, it's not a leg as such, but what it is a box construction here, which is screwed through to this post, to this leg here, and then I've put a London bracket in. The reason I haven't put a full leg in is because I haven't got enough wood. That doesn't mean in the future I won't, because I still could. Just see how it goes. If this does start to sag, I'm not expecting it to, but if it does start to sag in the middle, then that might be an option. And the other option, the other thing that might happen is that this might start to sag between these two sets of runners. If it does, I can soon whack a bit of 2x1 along each of these sections here, or whatever it might be, or along the edge, something, or a piece of steel, or whatever it might take. But you can see there's another set of runners down that end as well. So 3 sets of runners purely to support the board and stop it from tipping over. Oh, excuse my hand there. Right, and on to the track. Now, as you can see, I've got 2 pieces of track laid out at the moment. One's second radius, one's third radius. Now, the original idea was to just have a third radius curve going around the back, and that was what I planned for. And then I realised that the amount of space it would take up in the room. Now, I've taken up probably just over half the width of the room. I don't want to take any more, to be honest. So what I've decided to do is have a second radius curve, the inner one obviously, going round. And that means then I can get my tracks, if I bring that in slightly, so that that track comes fairly close on this part of the board. Now, the outer one, I'm thinking, this is the plan for a minute, tell me what you think, of opening up this tunnel there and then these 2 points here, switching them over. So that one goes to there because that's a right hand, and that one goes to here. And so that track goes across like that. So a train can come through, cross over onto this line, and then continue the double track all the way around the back into a double track loop, just as I've done over in that section over there. Okay, that means I can have 2 trains running at any one time, and I'm less likely to get bored. I've got a feeling that I might get bored after a little while with just the one track. I told a couple of people about this, and one question I had back was, are you then going to re-establish this into a proper station? No, I'm going to leave it exactly as it is, very condemned, very run down, because there are stations out there that have got bits of platforms that are just not used and they're fenced off. This one's obviously chained off. If you notice there is a no entry sign on the bottom of the steps there, so people can't get off that part. But this line here will still be bi-directional, so I can still have trains running round normal roundy if I want to, but if a train stops at this station, then it'll stop in both directions, so it can go off that way. And I'm thinking about putting a crossover at some point, maybe down that area there, or just around the corner, whatever, and then a train can go across back onto the other line, and so on. Okay, now you might also be thinking then, well, how's a train going to get from here to this section? Because it won't be able to anymore, because the point will be that will just continue round into that line and won't continue across. So what I'm proposing to do there is that if a train does need to come into the Fiddle yard, I can transfer it on the traverser. So a train can come in on an appropriate track, I can move the traverser to an slightly closer or whatever, and then it can come around back into the Fiddle yard or to the sidings at this end, and then go out the same way, and then I can switch it to the different track on the traverser at the back of there. So it should work quite well. That's my plan. I'm not going to plan to do the track work for this section just yet. In fact, the only thing I'm actually going to do for the moment is to lay this inner track. I might do the outer track. I might bring the tunnel through, but I'm not going to be switching the points over just at this moment in time. I might do that slightly later on, I don't know. Okay, so let's crack on. Well, as you can see, I've started to lay track, and I've got 2 or 3 pieces in there now, and I'm doing it by using steel rule, so I get it dead straight, measured in 20mm from the edge, and had to then gauge it across. Now I've had to settle for 9 tracks, purely because there isn't enough track, and it's also partly to do with this gap here. Some trains are catching as they go around there, so what I might have to do on this line is to have a slight kick out, which would be a very gentle curve, and then start to curve back in again. And then what I've had to do is convert these into a second radius. This is initially 3rd radius, by cutting the webbing, as you can see, and then you can bend it back into the shape you want. So this might not be a pure 2nd, 3rd radius by any means. I think that will probably have to have the same done to it. I've put a little extension on the end, so I can go slightly further that way just in case I need to, but it's definitely getting there. So I'll come back to you when I've done a bit more. All right, making some progress. So you can see I've got 3 tracks down now, and I've got 1 going to the full length, so that one. These 2 here, there's going to be a point about here, and this track will join onto that, purely because I think the curve going around there is going to be really tight to get to that point, let alone this one. So I think to have a point going in there would probably just be prudent. I've managed to get this curve sort of joined up and together now. I've put a slight straight bit in at here, at this point here, and soldered that on and glued the sleepers so that they don't move. Now the idea is that I'm going to glue down the track from this point on and around, okay? I'm not going to glue that one. I'm going to screw it down with washers on it, and the reason for that is because that will give me some sideways movement if I need it. So I can adjust the height with the feet, but I can also adjust the track by just loosening off the screw, make the adjustment, tighten it down again, that sort of thing. So I think that should work quite well. And you also notice these bits of plastic all the way around. That is for super elevation. I've just printed off these little wedges, so you can see it starts off 0.8 millimeters high, it goes around to 1.2, 1.8, and then the tallest is 2.4, and then it. Well, all was going very, very well until I just discovered something. Notice where the track joins there on the first line. Yeah, so that would continue down. Ah, what have I done? I've made a boo-boo, that's what I've done. And that curve is incredibly tight. It's probably getting on for first radius. The only loci I'm concerned about is that. And if it doesn't work, and it might be confined to going around on the outer line, but we'll see. We'll just see what happens first. But the problem being, obviously, I either tighten that even more, which I don't want to do, definitely, or I have to shuffle it across. So that's what I'm going to do. But the only way I can do it is to reconfigure this section just here. So this track has to come across at a slightly more steeper curve. I'll take you in a bit further. Sorry about these trees in the way here. But this track here will have to end up about there for that track to come across in such a way. So I'm afraid this has got to come up. I was even thinking about bringing the bridge forward, which I might still do, which would mean cutting a bit of this away and then just arch that side forward a little bit. Well, welcome back to a scene of devastation. You're used to seeing this on my channel, aren't you? Every now and again it happens. So obviously I've lifted out the viaduct, it's there. I'm not going to damage that because that took me ages to make that. If you remember, a couple of years ago, I put on every single brick individually. So I'm not going to damage that. That is going back on, I promise you that. But I have cut out this bit a bit further on. I might have to remove that little bit there, just bring it forward a little bit so that the bridge can then go back in at a more shallower angle, if you like. And then obviously have the tracks curve round on it. It will be a double track, as I've mentioned before, so that this point will come out and this track will continue round along there and out again. So I'm hoping that's enough. That's the curve. I might have to take it back a bit further looking at that again. But that's the curve where it needs to go. So that shouldn't be too difficult there, but yeah, I might cut this back just a tad more. So suggestions about whether I should just bring the ground to like that and just glue it back down again, or put in a wall or something. What do you fancy? I'll give you the chance to have a think about it. That won't be adjusted just yet. Well, what have we got here then? Running trains. Did think about what to use for the inaugural run, but Rocket just took my fancy, if you like. So you can see now that the whole of this line is now electrified all the way around. There's no, I've only just connected it with the fish plates, and one track on the Fiddle Yard Traverser is also electrified as well. All the other lines are not quite there yet. So those trains are just sitting there purely because I've slid them on. So I'm really, really pleased to see that going now, because it hasn't had a real run for quite a long time, I suppose. But anyway, I've tested all the trains and all of them go round quite well, even on this very sharp corner, except Hornby large prairie. Right, so what have I done then? Because this was the problem area, wasn't it? Obviously because the tracks needed to be moved over to this side by quite a lot, as you can see. So I've replaced all of that track right the way through now to there. And I've stripped out all of this area here, and obviously that is just really quite rough now. I've literally just cut it with a knife, so it looks awful. Decided on what to do here, whether to put a wall in or whether to cut it back even more and have it slope down. I'm not totally sure yet. So do please make suggestions if you feel you've got some ideas there what to do. A wall might be the most sensible option, but we'll just have to see. This area here, as I said, I've just stripped out the tracks, taken off all the disused bits, and this area here still needs to be done. But I can do that in time. It doesn't have to be done right this minute, but that point will come out, and that track there will continue across the bridge as a double track. So obviously I won't need that point in there at that moment. I'll try not to disturb this area here too much, because I quite like the run-down, dilapidated look of all of this, and I'm certainly not going to be touching the platforms. So rest assured there, because the whole layout was based on a run-down station in the middle of nowhere. So I don't want to take that away, but I do want to make the layout usable. That's the reason for doing all of this. Make it a little bit more desirable, if you like. It was becoming a point really where I hardly was touching it. I was just sitting there looking at it, and I was buying all the trains for it, but hardly ever running them. But if I'm only ever running them 9 feet and then back again, it's it's not really much, is it? At least this way they can have a bit of a run, and so I can have them running round and just enjoy watching them like I'm doing with this rocket now. The other thing I've discovered is that I do need some kind of locking mechanism on the tracks as the board on the traverser, because it's very, very easy to knock the track even by just a fraction of a millimetre. So, and then obviously trains derail. So I will need to investigate that. I'll probably buy a couple of bolt locks, you know, sliding bolt locks, and then 3D print a whole load of the housings. Otherwise it could get quite expensive to having to buy loads and loads of locks. So we can see what happens there. All right, anyway, I think I'm going to leave the video there. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I will catch you again very, very soon here on Piccadilly Sidings. Right, take care of yourself. Bye for now.